Well, good morning, guys. Sid Fernandez, and I cannot be more excited to have finally kicked off Conversation Con Cafecito once again with you guys. It has been way too long to have brought this and taken too much time to have brought this back. But if all of you guys who have been following, you guys know that the reason why this is taken to place is because with all the craziness in the world, we've got to get back to humble beginnings. We've got to get back to the real and raw conversations that really pull us together. For you guys who have seen videos coming all the way from 2018 till now, you guys have realized that I've really come into my passion. I want to chase this. I want to be able to present real conversations with real people going through real things. Why? Because right now we live in a world of social media, other types of media where we can fluff everything we want, and really we just disconnect from each other. Obviously, with the pandemic, even more negativity continues to fill our airwaves. And if we can do something, just a little bit, something extra to bring something real to you guys and connect us all together as one community, that's what we're looking for. So Conversation Cafecito kicks off today with a young lady who has actually become a very close friend of myself and and my wife, the rest of the family. They have visited Naples over and over again, trying to get away from the crazy of Miami. And she's got one hell of a story. This young lady by the name of Miss Kimberly Trelles. Like I said, she's coming live all the way from close to Hialeah. She will tell you that she's promoting herself as Miami Lakes, but let's be honest. Miami Lakes is really just like uppity Hialeah, but it's okay. It's down to our core. She's here to present not only her story, but also her brand, and she's got a really cool story to share with you guys. And the reason why I wanted to bring her on, aside from her being close, is because not only is she an entrepreneur, but she's also a full-time worker. She's a full-time mother, not only to her child, but also to her big child, her husband, Danny. But listen, you guys didn't come here for me. You guys came here for real stuff. So let's bring her on because this will be the first time she ever cues into StreamYard. Let's bring her on. Oh, all the way from Achievement University.
Hi, guys. Good morning.
Good. How are you?
Good. I had my cafecito with my espumita, so I'm good.
I already have mine. I have like every cafetera in my house right in front of me. I don't know what to do with my hands. So first and foremost, I know it's been like a crazy morning. You were dealing with Gabe. I've been trying to figure out. I've been up since like 5 a.m. trying to make sure that my setup is all right. Everything went haywire, but it's all good though.
Your setup is super legit. I love it.
What can I say? I'm blessed. Except I don't know what side to go with. So we'll get that down packed. And please don't judge the wicker behind me. It wasn't my choice. But
I can see a green screen in your future though. You need like a green screen with like advertisements like strolling by behind you.
I'm just glad that it gets from my boob down, so you guys don't see the pudge gut just yet. The COVID pudge is down here, but it's been insane.
I actually considered wearing my face mask today. You know, the Trelles Cottage face mask, of course, just so I can hide this from quarantine.
Yeah, I've been getting one chin for every month in the pandemic. That's just I think it's standard.
I don't do anymore.
Well, listen, Kim, thank you so much for being on. I know that we've been talking about doing some sort of interview with you for some time. And obviously, you've got a pretty interesting story, and it's something that I think it needs to be shared a little bit more. Aside from the fact that you being an entrepreneur, there's so many other layers to the onion that is Kim Trelles, and I wanted to be able to tell them about it. So first and foremost, you're not originally from Miami, even though you spent most of your time here. So tell us a little bit about your humble beginnings and what brought you to Miami.
Well, I'm from Hialeah. So right now we live in Miami Lakes, but yeah, I knew that was coming. I actually grew up in Hialeah, then my parents moved to Miami Lakes. So I did live in Miami Lakes for a little bit. And then during junior high, my parents decided to move to Hollywood, Florida. I don't know why. So we lived in Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale area for a while. And then I was working in retail at the time. And retail actually took me to New York, and I managed a retail store in New York. And then I had the opportunity to come back down. I moved back to South Florida, specifically Boca. Then I had the opportunity to move again to Bal Harbour, all with the same company. So I was in retail for so long. I had moved all over the country at this point. I had the opportunity to work in Vegas and other states, which was really cool. Great for a single girl. And then I, let's see, around the time I met my husband, That's when I started, noticing that I needed to change, like that working 60 plus hours a week just like wasn't the quality of life I was looking for. So I maintained, my job in retail, and then my husband and I decided to get married. And I always say this with like a grin on my face because they tell you how that weddings are expensive, but you really have no idea. And you tell yourself you're going to have a small wedding, and you do. And like, you like really cut down your guest list, and you end up like, not inviting people that you really want there, because you have to have like all of your tias and all of your cousins and all of your everything invited. So you would try to have a small wedding and still like you're in the negative, right? So my husband and I decided to get married and buy a house within the same 6 months. And we were so used to our lifestyle of eating out, of traveling. Like, we would find any excuse to just like, oh, let's go to New York for the weekend. Oh, let's go here for the weekend. And we would just get up and go. So we hit like a weird like reality check.
You mean like adulting responsibility? That thing that they put a hashtag with before? You mean that?
Yeah. Hashtag adulting was very real. Like, I had a small couch like in my old apartment, and when of course like we moved in and we joined households, the couch actually broke in the process of moving. Like, it broke in half because we didn't hire professional movers, and like eso era un arroz con mango. It was
wait. You talking about the guys at Home Depot aren't professional? They're not certified, ni insured, ni con seguro, ni nada. Not even with Estrella Insurance.
Estrella Insurance, no.
Okay, my bad. That was me. I guess
our couch broke in half. Like, it was not even a real couch. Like, it was a love seat. Like, to be honest,
it turned into a ping pong boom overnight.
Ping pong boom, yes, exactly. So we found ourselves with a beautiful house, but no furniture. Like, we had a mattress, but we didn't have any like major, like, like the niceties. So like me, I was always like, oh, my house, like my sanctuary, like, oh, and travel, this and that. Like, no, we were like, okay, we're eating like boxed macaroni and cheese, which I love boxed macaroni and cheese.
I'm a Velveeta guy, but let's keep down the hush, okay?
Yeah.
Remember, boobs down. Remember, that's what we're at, okay? Velveeta.
Organic mac and cheese. Okay, come on. So like, I was reliving like my time in New York when I was literally eating like canned tuna for lunch every day, and like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, like if I was lucky. So like, we like, we had very humble husband and wife.
The struggle is real. The struggle is real. We get it.
Yeah. So, it's like, it's tough because, your friends and your family expect, like, not that they expect, but, they may not know like where you're at, like financially, like, oh, they're so used to, inviting you out, like, oh, let's go to Finca this Saturday. Like, oh, let's go here. Like, oh, let's go on a spa day. And you're just like, you feel bad saying no all the time. So still, like, without any thought of like, oh, this, like, let's start a business. One day, like, my husband was like, oh man, like, did you realize like we haven't gone on a date night in a while? Like, and I was like, yeah, we really haven't. Like, maybe we should, even if it's just to like Starbucks or something, like we really should just like get out of the house, right? Just like enjoy like you and me time. And so I actually surprised my husband with an arts and craft beer night at home. And like Michael's had a crazy sale, and I bought like a few canvas boards for $5 and paintbrushes and stuff like that. And I set up like a little like art studio, like we had a coffee table. So like, that's what we had. So I set it up on the coffee table. I had grabbed like 2 or 3 craft beers from Total Wine. And that was it. Like, there wasn't even food involved. It was caramel popcorn. Like, that's what we ate for dinner. So we had caramel popcorn, beer, and I was like, hey, let's just, whatever you feel. Like, my husband's very creative, and, I think I am too. So we just started drawing, and it's funny, like, the first thing that we drew together as a couple ended up being our logo for a while. So
That's really, it's nuts how you guys have that one moment, right? So you go through like all this struggle, and it kind of humbles you, and all of a sudden, out of this necessity and like this spontaneous moment springs this. Now, before you even got to that point, did you ever imagine yourself being an entrepreneur at all? Like, was a seed ever planted through your travels? Now, we're not going to talk about Vegas because what's happening in Vegas stays there.
Yeah.
But was there ever a point that you could kind of pinpoint and say that's probably where I think the starting point was for me to become an entrepreneur or have my own business?
I think the seed was always there, but I never acknowledged it or saw that. I think that's because my family owned a business for so many years. My grandparents used to own Sarins Corporation. If anybody knows Sarins, like it was a wholesaler down on 7th Street by the Miami Merchandise Mart, or El Radisson, let's be honest.
Okay. It's fancy.
Yeah. So if you know Settings Corporation, or if you know the Miami Merchandise Mart, we used to have showrooms in there as well. So even like growing up, like the school bus used to drop me off at Settings. Like my mom used to work there with my dad, with my grandparents. And then when my mom had my brother, my sister, she ended up staying home, but it was our family business. Like I was used to working there during the summers. Like I really had no choice. Like that's what you did during the summer. Like I wanted to go to space camp. No, you're working. Trabajar, yeah. And like even there, like I would like get bored and I would like make little keychains and I would sell keychains. Like, you know, when you used to, I forget the name of it, like that cord, that like plastic cord you used to make.
Oh my God, everything is made with that now because everyone now is doing
it came back. It made a comeback.
They turned into Pandora. That's what they call it now. Like the Cuban Pandora now. I see them all over the place, which is good. Don't get it wrong. I would much rather pay someone who's a smaller business than obviously go to a massive company like Pandora. Nothing against them or anything, but show some love to the people who've got that entrepreneurial spirit. Listen, I remember I started working at Subway when I was like 12. Yes, I was a sandwich artist. I was. I started off as, you know, like the Pablo Picasso from 51st States, and I became Pablo Picasso of the sandwich world by the time I was 14. So I completely get it. So you said you started working for them when you were little, which is crazy. And for anybody who has been to Miami, hasn't been to Radisson Mart, is that even still around?
Yes, it is.
I don't think it's ever going to die out. And I think that's the only reason why the Radisson's still around.
I mean, it has sadly, like it has died down. Like it is not what it was. And I was just having this conversation with Gabby, actually, with your wife. Like it's sad because I grew up going there, like anybody like our age who had a quince, like, or like you're going to a wedding, you always went there for your extra like special jewelry or your crown for your quinces. Like, I don't know, like there's just so much magic behind it. And I think that's why I still go there. Like it's very like nostalgic for me, but it's definitely not what it once was, which is sad. I'm hoping they can, you know, get back to that. But yeah, I mean, my first like real like managing job, which is like on my resume and everything legit. And I think that's why like I was in retail for so many years, was I was 15 when I started managing my own showroom at the Mart.
Okay,
yeah.
Well. At 15, I was, you know,
and I remember asking,
and you're here managing.
Yeah, I remember my dad or my grandfather, they would take turns dropping me off because it was right across the street from Settings, from their warehouse. And I used to ask my grandfather for $20. That way I could go on my lunch break and I could have my nice lunch, and then maybe I'll buy something like coming back from my lunch break. Maybe I'll buy myself like una pulsera or something. Yeah.
See,
and then I would go back to my showroom and blast Eminem.
Will the real Trelles Cottage please stand up? So there you go. There's your plug, Eminem. I know he's like on, you know, he's doing really good now. He just came out with another album. All I guess that's nuts to me. Like I didn't grow up that way. I had friends of mine, like one of my closest friends growing up, very entrepreneurial. I was salesy, but I wasn't entrepreneurial. I can catch a popsicle to a person with white gloves. But the entrepreneurial spirit was just, it wasn't there. I didn't understand it really until I was older, until I had like ganas in places I don't want to have them. But it's awesome to hear how people experience an entrepreneurial like life so early. Because again, at 15, I didn't fathom even thinking about managing my own life or manage my own Cheerios. ladder, and you're here managing the store. So you started when you were young, and then obviously you got older, started working in retail. So you had this night with your husband, right, with Danny. So when did all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, like there could be something here. Like what happened?
So so I was telling you a little bit about how like our friends would, invite us out, every once in a while. And it got to the point where like I felt bad saying no. And I didn't want to be like, oh, woe is me, like I can't afford to go out. Sorry. Like, and I don't want them to be like, oh, we'll pay for you. Like I didn't want like, I didn't want a pity party. So instead we turned it around and we would invite them to our house and we'd be like, oh my gosh, like why don't you come over for arts and craft beer night? Like we do it once a week. It's super fun. And it ended up being like a crazy, crazy tradition, like every single week, like, and it just grew and grew. And one of our first like regular guests was Emilio from Armada Concepts, which I know like my husband's best friend and like one of my closest friends, and his wife Angie is like my best friend, my sister really. And he's an artist and he's very creative, and it's like it became part of like almost like a competition, like who could do something better, especially between me and my husband, and maybe my husband between Emilio, because they're very competitive. So we were watching Planet Earth, and there was like, we're like, the penguins, let's watch the penguins. And it was like a very like violent scene of like where the penguins are like trying to escape the sea lines or something, and they were like jumping off the cliffs, like. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so like crazy, but I love penguins and my aunt loves penguins. So we were like, who could do a better penguin? So we were like both drawing penguins, and then like, who could do a better puffin? And then we both like drew a puffin, and one of the puffins were like, oh my gosh, I love this from my design, but I like this from yours, and I like this from yours. And then our friend Mike was like, let me draw this in. And like a fourth person, like, played with it and touched it. So it ended up being like, we're like, oh my gosh, this would make such a cute shirt, wouldn't it? Like a stud puffin, like instead of a stud muffin, a stud puffin. and and so like just for fun, we put it on Etsy. Like I was a huge Etsy shopper. Like I didn't own a shop on Etsy. I've always believed in shopping small. And I was like, let me just open an account on Etsy. It's free. They charge you like $20 to list, $20, sorry, to list something. Like that's it. And we're like, what do I lose? 20 cents? Like if it sells, like it sells. So we just like put one item up, and it really just started like that. It just snowballed. It wasn't ever meant to be like, oh yeah, we're going to start a business, like help us start a business. We're starting now. And like, when we really looked at it, like after selling like 1 or 2 shirts, we're like, oh shit. Oh, look at how many designs we have from all our arts and craft beer nights. Like,
you just look like Coach Klein. You look like Coach Klein, the water boy. These are mine. These are mine. It started with stud puffin, and now it's turned into what it's turned into. That's I'm really glad that you told that story, because I've never heard the stud puffin thing, and I actually want the shirt. So if you ever do like a throwback line, like a TBT, not TPT, TBT throwback, okay? I want a stud puffin shirt. Just make sure it's extra double XL.
Yeah, I got you.
So be honest. You start off at stud puffin, never would have imagined what it would come, and now you're wearing Achievement University shirt. You have people posting videos about their graduation or their acceptance letter into Achievement University. And just real quick, like, did you ever imagine you'd be where you are today with Trelles, like when you started this?
No, especially since like, when you think of starting a business and, you can have humble beginnings, but what do you have? Like you have capital, like you have like, a business plan. You have all of these things where we did not start that way. It was not like we planned for this, and I am a planner. So like, it's not like I sat down and like, 4 years from now, I want to have Achievement University. It really just started off as something fun. We put it out there just to see, how it would do. It did really well. And then what I love most about my brand and our designs, and I say our designs, I don't say my designs, because yes, a lot of the designs are just me, like working at 2 a.m. and finishing this design where, man, I know there's something there, and I'm so frustrated because it's not perfect yet. And like, I want to present this before anyone else does. So like, there's that part. But I say our designs because a lot of it is like, I tell my husband, like, I really want this. Like, this is what I drew. I don't love it. And my husband will come in and make it better. And like, it's done. Or sometimes like I work on it. My husband works on it. And I'm like, man, I really don't like this. Emilio, what do you think? And I send it to Emilio. And Emilio's like, magic dust. And it's like,
dude, man.
Oh my God.
That guy is nuts. He draws something up and it's like, this is what I drew. It's like a circle, three, you know.
Circle, here.
My stick figures are amputees because I can't even finish that. And he put together these like ensembles. It's like, where did you find this?
And not just like one. He doesn't come up with just like one idea. He comes with up with like 10 at the same time. So you're just like, okay, let me just.
It's like the Matrix.
Magic dust for me. Thank you, goodbye. And you know, even like I have my friend Alex that I worked with in retail for so many years. Like it's been the same thing. Like I've been like, oh my gosh, like you need to come to our arts and craft nights. Like you need to do this. Oh my gosh, it's gonna be so much fun. We're gonna chismear. Like we're all about friendly achievement, by the way. We're not about negative achievement. So like even like he would come over and he'd be like, oh man, you should do this, like, or you should do this. Oh my gosh, it's so Miami and nobody does it. And that to me is like, to us is like super important that no one else does it. Because I always want to differentiate myself from anyone else.
And I think it's important because, you know, listen, you know, you're going to put stuff out there. And the worst part is that there are going to be people who rip ideas. It's going to happen, whether it's in China or in the States, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And, but what I've noticed is something that as our relationship has grown, I always keep tabs on social media. And what I've seen is that I like there's a collective of people who I think are real true to artistry, right? And respect for each other's artistry. If we continue keeping that and just say, listen, this is ours, is yours, but give each other love. I think that's a really big piece of all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's huge. And I do love the fact that you guys there's a unique twist to you guys because you really don't, like when you get into your brand now, you'll see that your stuff is not really seen anywhere else, like at all. I haven't really seen things that mimic it. So, Mina, you've launched Trelles, you started going, and when in the process did you when you guys become parents? Like, when was it? How many years into it?
Okay, yeah, I'm glad you asked that. So we got married and bought a house in beginning of 2016. So bought a house January 2016. Yeah, with Bubbles. Mira, say hi to Sid.
Oh, see, we're plugging the kid in for marketing. You see that? That's well done. That's Achievement University 101. That's the first class. Intro to marketing. Plug your child in.
He's his dinosaurs now. He's fine. So we bought a house January 2016, got married May 2016, found out we were pregnant August 2016. So it was like, it was very, very quick.
Just kidding. No, just kidding. Don't put it up. That's for after 10. That's for after 10. See? That's for after 10. It's after 10. Don't worry about it. Danny, you monster, Daniel.
So yeah, we were pregnant. And then at that point, like we had already like sold a few shirts on Etsy. And then we were like, oh, I wonder if we should do some onesies and see if there's something there. We didn't know if we were having a boy or a girl, obviously. So we just went with unisex designs. And one of our first unisex designs was the Tres Leches. Have you seen the Tres Leches?
I have. And it's my brother saw it the other day and he's like, oh my God, I absolutely love it. So what? Okay, so we're getting to my story, but since it's your first one, what made you think of that specific design?
Nothing in particular. I mean, obviously, other than the fact that we love tres leches and flan and all desserts like imaginable. But just like we were thinking of like what's cute for like unisex, and then we thought of the tres leches, which I'm trying to think if I think I have one here. Oh, there you have it.
There it is. You see, I'm already prepared. So for those
there you go. I love it.
This is the tres leches shirt. So And I think it's such an ingenious idea because you put the cherry on top in the middle. I think it's absolutely perfect. So if you guys are interested in that cherry, it's right here, and we'll make sure to send the link to you guys. I had to pop it in there because if not, I have to do the plug. I have to be nice.
Perfect. No, perfect. Thank you. I'm like, I know I have one like around here, but I didn't want to like get up.
Yeah, because don't forget that your house is not only a staging area for family, it's also a staging area for Trelles, a cooking place, a place where cafecito gets made. You're literally a one-stop shop.
Yeah, and where I have all my Zoom calls for work.
A lot of us are. So you got pregnant in August. You made that Tres Leches shirt. You started kicking that off. How was that movement when you kicked that shirt?
I'm sorry.
When you guys started that, when you guys made Tres Leches, because obviously you guys had gotten pregnant in the onesie. How did that launch? Like, how was that process? So
then we noticed, like, oh wow, like there's definitely a demand for onesies, for bodysuits, I should say. Any baby and children, like it took off right away. So I wouldn't say took off, but like it did very well. And so like people were messaging me on Etsy like, oh, this is so cute, but do you have it in toddler? I was like, I can make it in a toddler. So then when I started making it in toddler, I'm like, oh, I should list them like for toddlers as well. And then I had a few other designs, but fast forward when we found out it was a boy, I worked like right next door to this like really like super cute, super posh like baby store. And I remember going in there almost every single day just because like me dio la ansiedad, like I need to buy something. I need to buy something. Like the moment you find out it's a boy or a girl and they tell you not to buy clothes, like they'll tell you 1,000 times, don't buy any clothes, you're gonna get it for the baby shower. And you're just like I need to like buy something now, right? Like you just get that feeling. So like I would go into the super posh baby store like every single day. I'm like, oh, where's you? Like, do you have anything new for boys? And they're like, no, this is our boy section. Like this is our boy section, and this is the girls. The entire store is the girl section. So it was
shafted.
Dude, it's like I feel bad. Basically, you all wore the same thing growing up. You all wore trains and fire trucks, and and that was it. Call it a day. You guys all wore
that. I wore leftovers from all the other kids that were older than me, which is none because I was the oldest one of the cousins.
I'm sorry.
The Will and the team TJ Maxx pile.
So when we saw that, like we were like, man, like pobrecito mi niño, like he's not gonna be wearing what everyone wears. Like we're gonna have to like make our own stuff for him. And then that's really where the little croquetica Pepe came into play. Like Pepe wasn't created to be like what he is now. Like the idea for him isn't what he is now. Like the idea was just like, oh, let's do a cute like little boy croqueta on our shirt because there's barely anything for boys right now.
For all those who are wondering what that Pepe is, you can continue on, but I wanted to make sure everyone saw it. So there's little Pepe.
That's Pepe. So that's Pepe. He's our boy. He's our original boy croqueta, and his girlfriend or wife, I should say, is Clarita, the girl croqueta. And Pepe y Clarita are actual family members. Like the names are actual family members. So we try to keep it like true to us. Like all of our croquetas, like now I've already lost count how many characters we have because we keep like launching them, and there's a lot that we have completed. We just haven't launched them to the public yet. That's Clarita. So all of our croquetas have their own personality, and really like the idea behind them is like a personality that matches someone in our family. So to us, that makes it even more special. The fact that when people are like, oh my gosh, I love Lucy so much. Like, I love her. She's my favorite croqueta. And like that to me, I'm like, oh, like, thank you. And I love her sazon. I love her this. I love her that. And I'm like, yeah. And I already know. I
think it's really awesome because the story behind it, and you and I have talked about ideas of what's going to happen because you already started having a foresight of it, right? But you have people like Jenny Lorenzo. Obviously, for those who don't know Jenny Lorenzo, she's a very, very well-known comedian. Started with Me Too, now doing her own thing with all of her content creation. And her famous skit or person is her abuela. It came from her abuela. So it's, I think that there's something really important because it feels like you're carrying something with it. Like your lineage is carrying with you your culture, which we struggle with. I wasn't born in Cuba. I was born in Alabama. But, I'm Hispanic. I carry the Hispanic thighs and Hispanic booty and the issues with pantalones and stuff like that. But, we always have a struggle trying to reconnect to our culture when the viejos are dying off. that's a really terrible term to say, but you know, they're passing on to the next life. I'm using the terminology my grandmother says, which is kicking the bucket, but but it's awesome the fact that you can kind of keep the history and the lives of other people in your life into your artistry. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I don't know, like, I think that happened. Like, I think that that just happened organically because we weren't like so focused and so keen on like starting a business. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think like maybe me, I get overwhelmed when I see like all the things that I have to do. Like, oh, if you're gonna start a business, these are all the things you have to do. Like, and I think because it happened just so organically, like now we're at the place where we're like, oh man, like now it's like we can have fun with every character, we can have fun with every design, and if we sell them, great. If we don't, then we just have them for another project. You know, like if this croqueta doesn't sell, okay, great, but maybe they'll make a good children's book later on. You know what I mean? Like we have them. So
it's like the Avengers. Listen, there's a ton of Avengers. There's a ton of Marvel characters. They're not all gonna get a solo movie, just like these croquetas. I mean, if they were real, they would all be eaten up. But for right now, for these purposes, no, they may not. You know, they may not get the bestseller list, but I think they're still really important to the story. Now, you become a mom, but there's an extra wrinkle to all this, and I think that obviously that gets to an emotional part of your story, and I think it's an important one to tell. You have your son Gabriel is he's a special one, that kid, because I've taken him on walks, we've had conversations, long ones. Yeah. But tell us the journey of going from starting a family or moving, getting pregnant, in between breaking the couch at some point in time, whether it's the move or anything else, starting this business, and then learning that your son is on the spectrum. So tell me a little bit about that. How has that journey been for you and your husband? Because listen, it's not an easy one. Let's be honest. It's not an easy one. It's something of learning, education, and patience. And I think there are a lot of people out there who probably are in the same shoes as yourself. Maybe you want to start a business and have no faith that they can do both. So tell us a little about that journey, because I think it's a good one to tell.
So I think like it's obviously like it's obviously very emotional. So I'm gonna try not to. I think now like I'm finally at the point where I could talk about it without getting like super emotional, but still. So I want to say it was like a year and a half ago. So a year and a half ago, I was still in retail and I was still working full time, running my business full time, and taking care of Gabriel. And then a year and a half ago, I had this amazing opportunity to actually leave retail, something that I've known my entire life, like that I've grown up with, like seeing my parents like sell like women's clothing, like that's all I really knew. But I had this amazing opportunity to work here in Miami Lakes for a small business, and help them with their marketing and help them, with their day-to-day operations. And that was like amazing and really scary at the same time, because I was like, I don't want to leave a company that I've known for almost 8 years. I don't want to leave, something that I know that I excel in, and going to work for a company where, I'm going to be the small fish and I'm going to have a lot to learn and I don't know anything. But something inside of me was just like, it's time. And I think this is where like our faith comes into play. Like something inside of me was like, no, it's time. You're going to be closer to home. You're going to be closer to Gabriel. Heaven forbid something should happen. Like you're really close to home. So less than a month after I made the move, and like now I live and work in Miami Lakes, just less than a month after, Gabriel was diagnosed with autism. And at first I didn't like accept it like whatsoever. I was like, no, this is not my reality. Like I like spoke to a few friends of mine, and they just like were like, just get a second opinion. And I didn't see it. Like I'm his mom, I would know, and I don't see it. And obviously he's my only child, so I didn't have like any other children to base off of, right? So I was like, no, that's not my son, and it's not my family's reality, and I'm gonna get a second opinion. So if you know this process, any of you are parents out there, or if you know anybody that has gone through this process, like with early steps or even like therapies in general, it is such a long process, even with insurance, like even with great insurance. It took almost 5 months to like finally get through to like another set of doctors, like and another like actual like not test, because there's no really like test for it, but how they test for it, like the process. And sure enough, like another neurologist was like, yes, like he is on the spectrum. He's too young to know where on the spectrum, but you know, he's gonna really benefit from like early intervention, early therapies. And he was already in speech therapy, because we obviously like knew like, hey, he's not talking. There's obviously a speech delay, but we didn't know like to what extent. So mind you, like all that time has now like been wasted, like in my mind, like now like that's something that I live with, like if I would have started even earlier when I first got the diagnosis. But we waited for the second opinion, and from that moment, like it was like kind of like sink or swim. Like yes, I like fell into, you know, a light depression. Like yes, like I felt guilty for like not, you know, taking him to like getting what he needed sooner. But I was like, it's sink or swim. Like I need to be my son's advocate. And I don't know anything about like ASD. I don't know, you know, how like what, you know, what other than therapy does he need? You know what I mean? Like, does he need to go to special school? Like, does he need, you know, a different way of like of discipline? Because I'm like the tough mom and my husband's like the softie. So like, and I've always been like, oh really? Like time out. Like I've always been like time out, you know, like, and now I'm like rethinking everything. Like, oh man, even like how I discipline, that's not going to work for him. So immediately, like, and this is like 5 months into like a new job, or like less than 6 months into a new job, I'm like having to tell my boss like he needs to go to speech therapy twice a week, occupational therapy twice a week, behavioral therapy 5 days a week. Like he's going to need articulation therapy when he turns 3. Like I was seeing the mountain and I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is what I need. And oh my gosh, please don't fire me. Like I love this job and blah, blah, blah. And they were actually like super, super caring, understanding. They had someone with autism in the family as well. So they understood, and I couldn't even like, you know, like to this day, I'm so grateful for them. And I think that's why, like, even now, like, I'm always working, because like, I love and appreciate them so much that they were so flexible with me, like in the beginning, like waiting for all those months for an appointment and waiting all those months for this, and finally getting the approval from the insurance to start therapy. You're just like, oh my gosh, the therapy is from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Mondays and Wednesdays. And then it's from 1 to 3 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I have to leave early on these days, and I have to come in late on these days. And they were just so cool and so flexible. So like I would work like while in the waiting room, because for some of the therapies you can't go inside. So I'd be in the waiting room on my laptop, like just like working, like as if I was still in the office. But now, like fast forward like a year and a half later, like Gabriel is doing so much better. Like we see the therapies that are working, you know. Now I can finally talk about it without having like an emotional breakdown. We're really doing our research as parents, like not just like for him, but for us. Like we need to know that we're in the right space, like personally and with our marriage, because it also puts a huge strain on your marriage, or it can, you know, because it's somebody that needs you a lot more, like, you know, like they're less independent, like at, you know, depending on where they fall on the spectrum. So it is what it is, but like we're working through it as a family, we're working through it as individuals, but at the end of the day, he's our greatest advocate. So we're doing everything we can. Like we volunteer whenever possible. We give back to certain organizations. We don't have one set organization that we give back to because we really just see like where the need is. And like right now, like July and August, it's Autism Speaks because we have the Autism Walk on the 30th, which we're participating on. So
there's Big Man himself. Look at those eyes, man. See?
That's my little.
That's an Niño, man. I'm telling you, we've had long walks near Tacos and Tequila because when they visit Tacos and Tequila afternoon together. So I take him for long walks around the plaza. He takes me around. He's like, I'm tired of these croquetas, man. He's trying to watch his weight too. And you know that story. You don't hear enough about it. And I love the fact that you touched upon the fact that you went through denial. And I've talked to a lot of parents who went through this same exact thing when they didn't know. The denial process is a serious one. And maybe do you think the denial was not only just because you didn't know what to expect after this, or was it because you almost felt solo and alone? Like what culminated that denial feeling for you, if you can walk through it?
I think both. You know, when you find out my husband and I had always wanted children. So he had wanted children for a long time. I had wanted children for a long time. And even for me, like I thought it wouldn't be possible just from like some complications that I had in the past, not with pregnancy, but just other complications. So we had wanted, Gabriel for such a long time, and it's not that we don't want him now, but it's just the idea of like, you want a kid, like, but when you think of having a kid, you envision this like perfect, like rose-colored glasses life, like, oh my gosh, like just thinking of him getting married and I start to cry. Like I was pregnant and just being like sobbing to my husband, like one day he's gonna leave me. Like, and Daniel's like, you need to calm down. Like you haven't even had him yet and you're worrying about when he's 20 something and he gets married and leaves you. Like you need to calm down. Yeah, and then I would cry about him going off to college and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna make sure that he goes to whatever college he wants and he's not like held back to Miami. Like my parents like made me stay in the state, and I really made me stay in Miami, and I wanted to explore and go out and I wasn't allowed to, and I would be like, he's gonna leave for college and I'm gonna make sure he leaves, but I'm gonna cry, blah blah blah. And you think of all of these things, like you envision for them and you pray over them and you have them on your dream board that he's gonna have this amazing, blessed, fulfilled life. And then when you find that out, and at least for me, like I was in denial for so many reasons, mostly because I didn't see it, but also because I'm like, no, this is not the life that I planned for my child, that I spoke into existence for my child. And really now I know that that's not the case. Like I'm like knowing better, like I know that that's not the case. I know that God didn't bless him less or bless us any less. It's just he thinks and sees things, a little differently. So even that denial for me, like I wonder how many other people have that same denial and have that same fear. So when I was thinking, or when we were thinking, should we even come out and tell people this? Because A, it's like so personal. B, we still don't know how to process it or how to help him. And then ultimately, when we got to the point where we realized like all of our expectations, like even if he was nonverbal for the rest of his life, like he could still have a very fulfilled life. Like there's so much like, advancements now, like so much technology, like they've done so much research and there's still a long way to go, but we've come so far where like, growing up, I didn't know anybody with autism. Like there was no one in my class that had autism, no one in my family. So I didn't know what to expect. You just assume the worst. And I think that that's why we decided to come out and be public about it, because for someone to think like, oh, like they're this or they're that, or they label anyone with, anyone on the spectrum, if they just label them, like that's the worst thing you can do. And I hear a lot of like, ay, pobrecito, ay, this, ay, that. And like, really, like.
Yo oigo esa palabra. Pobrecito, pobrecito.
Pobrecito.
Stop already.
Yeah. So it's like,
I know.
all I want really is like, acceptance for him, because it's like, obviously, like now, like, not to say like we're so educated, because we're still learning and we have a long way to go, but like, you know, you just want acceptance for your son, and you just want the best for your son. Like, all the opportunities, like, they should be just as available for him than for anybody else. So I think it all starts with like educating people as well, and for them to see that it's not this like scary monster, like, you know.
Listen, I can't even imagine. I can't. I mean, I think the biggest scare we had, and I didn't even know what the hell was going on, was, you know, when Caden was born, we had, you know, he came out and he was blue, like just blue. I mean, it was, I don't know if you ever saw the pictures. I don't know if Gabby ever showed them to you, but someone saw them the other day, and they just they literally froze, and I didn't know. I'm, you know, 22 years old. This is gonna be my second kid. I'm half dumb because I'm halfway on the road most of the time. And, you know, that was a scare for them, but I guess I didn't understand it. But, you know, for you and how you guys have navigated and how you guys continue to grow the brand, I'm going to take a fat guess here that this has been, though you've gone through some ups and downs, it still propels you to continue pushing and to continue to tell yourself, I'm not going to give my excuse in my business, because my son's not going to have an excuse to not live his best life.
Exactly.
Yes, right?
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, like, our dream board has actually like grown, and it has added a lot of other, like, you know, pieces to it. Like, now I see it more as like, no, it has to be a success. Like, because, you know, every night that, like, if my son goes to sleep at 9, and if that's when I can finally do like the Trelles Cottage, that's when I can finally work on new designs, or that's when I can fulfill orders. For a lot of you that have ordered with us, you may have seen like your order confirmation, like your shipping confirmation email sent through. You may see that it arrived at like 2 a.m. And that's because that's when I'm fulfilling orders, because I work full time during the day. And I'm obviously taking care of Gabriel, and Gabriel loves his mama, and he needs to be by my side at all times. So the moment he goes to sleep, that's when I work on the Trelles Cottage. And to me, that's just like more, it propels me so much more to create this life for him. You know, although I love my job and I can see myself working at my full-time job for many, many years and for a long time, I still want to create this life for my son where, without worrying about insurances, without worrying about, you know, like if he qualifies or not, I want to give him the best of everything. I want him to get into whatever schools that he needs to get into. I want him to have all the therapies that he needs to get, not just like what he gets approved for. Like, oh, he only got approved for 30 minutes. Too bad, he's getting it for an hour and I'm paying the difference. Like it took 12 months for him to get approval for speech therapy. So we were paying for speech therapy out of pocket for 12 months. So it's something where, like, if we hadn't done that, he would have been, you know, he wouldn't be where he is today. And even though he's not una cotorra, he's not talking, you know, and we still see all of the, you know, the victories and all of the improvement he has made. And that has been through speech therapy, which is so, so important. So no, that it definitely propels us to continue working, continue exploring, you know, like, now with, you know, COVID, that we can't go to our markets, and we're so used to like setting up our markets on the weekends when we're both off from work. Like, now we're like, oh man, now we don't have markets. What are we going to do? Like, okay, like, I guess we need to like work more in advertisement, which we really haven't, you know, paid too much attention to. Now we have to do ads, or we have to get into stores. You just have to find other creative ways, because esto no se muere aquí, you know, like, we have to continue forward for Gabriel so that Gabriel has a legacy too, you know?
So for any of those people out there right now watching this, and when you watch it later, there's no excuse, like none. I hope that this little conversation, which will be the first of many, I hope this shows to you guys that there is no reason to stop. No matter what happens in your life, you either use it as a stopping mechanism, as a speed bump that just is a permanent speed bump, or it fuels your tank. But for you, Kim, what's next? Like, what's in the horizon for Trelles as we kind of go towards the tail end of the interview? What's next for you guys? What's like the next piece aside from Chief Med University, which you know most Latinos already graduate from? But It doesn't come with transcripts.
Well, definitely.
He has something to say too. So.
Yeah. And he's like turning his face. He really doesn't want to be on camera. Papa, do you want to say hi? Oh, look at the kitty cats.
You see, this is the life of an entrepreneur, peeps.
Oh, Papa, that video is not available.
Oh,
Boy.
you need a VPN.
Oh, Papa, that video is not available. Look, you got to do another doggy. Yeah.
And while they're dealing with kitty cats, this is where you can find her on Instagram.
Oh, that one.
Like guys, the Trelles Cottage on Instagram. Oh, look at that dish. You see, I'm starving right now. I started that fasting, and I'm dying now.
Oh.
I am absolutely dying. But yeah, guys, take a peek at her Instagram if you have a chance, you have a moment.
Yes, we're so close to 10,000 followers. We're like 40 away the last I checked.
Where are we at today? We're only what 34 away now. So if you guys are watching, make sure to hit Instagram. Give her a like. We're almost there. Almost at 10,000. Almost there. Clap hands. So what's next? You know, as we end this, what's next for you guys?
Well, we're definitely going to continue collaborating with other local businesses. That's something that we really started to do more of now with the pandemic. Now that we have, I hate to say like free time because there's no free time, but it's just the fact that we're not at markets, like we're not busy like setting up and like working for markets. So those like weekends where we're not at markets, like now we're like, okay, who should we collaborate with? So you're gonna see more collaborations in the future. You're gonna definitely see Chiefma University grow, and we're gonna have like a whole student life program. We're gonna have sororities, like fraternities, de todo. So there you go, Mom. When my mom keeps asking me to continue my education and get my master's or whatever, I'm like, Mom, I started my own university. Ike.
And there's no student loans to pay back, baby. No student loans to pay back, except for loans to get the shirts. No, I'm kidding. Listen, Kim, I'm thankful to have you guys in my life. I love seeing what you guys do. You teach me a lot when it comes to what you're doing, and obviously us kicking off. Oh, go ahead, please. I'm not gonna.
That I forgot for the future. Children's books. So we want to launch a series of children's book as well. We do have that on our 5-year plan, but we're hoping it's much sooner than that. And I'm actually taking a children's writing class now in the fall. So
there's classes for everything because you kind of like a children's writing class. There's classes for everything, and if you guys look in the right spots, you'll find it. Listen, I'm always humbled by people who I've been able to meet along the way because I was not an entrepreneur even 2 years ago, and I've met people along the way that have taught me. By the way, I think even you when we were at the beach this past weekend, or when was it? This past weekend? Whatever it was, time's flying right now.
Before, yeah. No, this weekend.
Whatever it was. You guys came, even then we were talking about stuff, and love those conversations because again, you've been handed a certain set of cards. Everyone's been handed a different deck, and I think that being able to maneuver through those different decks allows us to play the same game together. And I love being able to learn from people like you who don't make excuses for anything, and I love that. I really do love that about you. I really, really do, and that's something that I look up to you guys for, legit. So where can they find you? Because I put the little information right here at the bottom of the little stream if you can see it, but where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find us on I was gonna say LinkedIn, on Instagram. The link in our bio has like links to our shop, but visit our website, thetradescottage.com, and you'll see our entire collection there. And make sure that you're following the Trelles Cottage on Instagram or Facebook, and you'll see all of our future collaborations, hopefully with La Espumita coming soon.
Wait, I have to drop this one. Sorry. I'm still like weirded out by this. I have to go the opposite direction.
I know. No, it's the same thing. I'm always like trying to do this, and I ended up like cutting off like my
The wonderful things about doing this live. Listen, Kim, just stay right there. But thank you so much for being on here. I really do appreciate you being here. It's awesome to share the screen with you, and I look forward to continue to grow with you. All right. So just stay right there. I'll get right to you. Okay. Un beso. All right, guys, listen, I want to thank each and every one of you who's been able to catch this live. If you can't, and we're going to catch it later, again, I'm super appreciative. I hope that this series, along with this interview, hope it brings some enlightenment to you. I hope that it inspires something deep inside of you. I know there are a lot of people who lack that. I think that we lack the more inspirational, igniting type thing, type content out there. And really, at the end of the day, guys, it really comes down to you. If you want to do something in your life, do it. There's going to be hurdles along the way, no matter what you do, no matter how easy you want this to be, you will have something that messes up. You will have something in your way. It's how you handle it. And not just that, it's who you bring along the way. There are people out there that, sadly enough, don't want to see you succeed because they're in their own rut. It's important for us to try and help them, but at some point, you're going to have to figure out that maybe those aren't the people that are going to get you to the next place. And we've got to figure that out for ourselves. Again, this story is big. It's impactful because a lot of people are going through it and they're doing it in silence. That's why it's important to tell our story. I want to say a big thank you to La Pomita, our sponsor of Conversation with Cafecito. And I want to thank you guys again. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this journey. I'm looking forward to sharing more, guys. You guys take care of yourselves.